Hi, I'm Supermoon Tarot, and today we are going to be looking at who you were in a past life, as well as what that means for you right now. Now, on a just purely entertainment level, it is so fun to learn, what we've done before and what we've accomplished in a different scenario that we're not living in this current timeline. But if you've ever seen videos or read books about people going through hypnotherapy and past life regression stuff, there's a lot of cathartic emotional stuff that people overcome for unresolved, unexplainable emotions they're going through right now. Or they're able to better understand, skills that they could master in this lifetime because they had a natural ability in another and that carried through now. So this is both fun and, cool to look at, but take note of some of the stuff that can benefit you now as we go through the cards. Now, as you can see, I have them set up in 4 groups. You can see the various groups. Pick whatever group resonates with you most. I'm going to give you a moment to do that. And you can go down to the description below where the timestamps are for each group, and let's get started figuring out who you were in a past life in group number 1. Group number 1. Let's find out who you were in a past life. Let's look at your tarot cards. We've got 6 of Swords, 9 of Cups, 10 of Wands, 2 of Wands. Oh, 6 of Swords again. That's actually very positive, and we'll talk about why in a moment. The Hermit. And your last card is Child Eternal. Okay, give me a moment to just look at this. Okay. All right. So let's start off by informing you why this is really positive. Anytime tarot repeats itself, this is tarot and spirit's way of going, listen up, pay attention. This is important, and it is a wonderful way of being absolute confirmation about certain information. We get a lot of stuff going on here with the other cards. But let's talk about what timeline we're looking at, because we're being told explicitly. This is one of your first, if not your first time of being celestially birthed. We're going to be really creative with the vocabulary here. And the awesome thing is, from the very beginning, you were very smart, very wise. You knew what was up. You had everything going for you when it comes to your mental capacity. Now, the reason why this is especially important, especially with it being a new timeline, is we're gonna talk about something that drives me just a dash nuts. Whenever people talk about someone coming across very calm, very mature, quote unquote wise, it always comes with the viewpoint that they are an old soul, that they would have had to experience a lot in life. It's basically an insult. It's like, hey, you were dumb before and now you're smart. When, first of all, why? Why can't people just naturally be in tune with what's going on? You were, and that's really beautiful. But what this tells us, and is an awesome sign for you to take kind of solace in, is if anyone ever tries to make you doubt yourself and about your brain capacity, tries to say like, oh, you just naturally know, but you haven't even learned the information yet, you can be like, yeah, I was lucky. I always knew. In this lifetime, it's carried through in other lifetimes. It's just a skill I've been fortunate enough to be born in. And you should definitely use that to your advantage. And if anyone makes you doubt that, just be like, no. I've got proof to back it up. Back it up. I know what's going on. Now, moving forward in that, I can tell you that this is somebody that you were in this lifetime. You were a male. You were middle-aged when you passed away. You would have been probably like 40. I'm getting a strong younger 40 vibe going on here. And because it doesn't say how you passed away, but we are explicitly being told how you were brought into this world, this would have been a non-traumatic death. So you would have just died naturally. This was a different time. People didn't live as long. But you lived a good life. You lived a very good life. You were an Aquarius, we are being told here. This is one of the repeating symbols we're being told. And you were also, and I can see this in nearly every card, you were a traveling merchant. This would have been somebody who, I don't get anything deserty vibes, so this would have been mostly following the coast, following the coast of different continents. You would have mostly been in green mountainous terrain, and you just loved what you did, but we're going to get into all of that. I'm also being told that you were an Aquarius. Now, zodiac signs are a wonderful way we can better understand ourselves or just enjoy for fun entertainment's sake. But when I'm being explicitly told about how important your Aquarius sign is, and honestly, when we look at the life you lived, you were like an Aquarius through and through. You were definitely free-spirited when we talk about the whole traveling thing going on. You were very creative about how you built your fortune. Oh yes, fortune. We're going to be getting into that. I'm just a creative person in general. You were open-minded, and you were somebody who thought for themselves. We talked about this, about how smart you were and how you were okay with being your own person. Now, speaking of being your own person, before we get into kind of like your lineage and what went on and you started off as somebody who didn't necessarily find passion or connection with their family. You were not, the two of you didn't mix for a variety of reasons. It looks like they weren't the type of family to necessarily. Sometimes people just don't care about their kids. It's not a personal thing. They don't even hate them. They don't really care that much. But also, your family liked to view things as limited, impossible, and you were the opposite. You were extremely optimistic. You were always looking towards the future. No matter with what you had to deal with, you were always excited for the potential and the possibility of what was to come. And you received a lot of that in this lifetime, which is awesome to talk about. So you decided to part away from your family for two reasons. One, you were so happy and optimistic in life in contrast of their natural mindset and the little kind of like, all of them were experiencing, that you were like, we're not meshing as people. I gotta go do my own thing. But the other reason why you left them is you're just, in this lifetime, you never married. You never had your own family. And honestly, you never really looked into romance or relationships at all. I don't get any of that anywhere. And not because you couldn't click with people, but you just didn't care to. You found so much happiness and passion in what you did work-wise. And that's an important part of who you were as a person. So, like I said, very optimistic, very positive, loved the idea of being able to create something out of nothing. You wanted to earn a lot of money, and guess what? You did. So you came from, I can see here, here, and a little more here than here, that you came from a pretty humble means, pretty much like, to put it politely, you were pretty broke. Your family was pretty poor. It was amazing how far you got in your lifetime. So you found a lot of passion in being like, okay, let me buy stuff from other areas and I will be my own little import business. And in the beginning, you did it by hand. You were like, I don't care that I don't have a horse, I don't have a boat, whatever it was at the time. And to be clear about something, I am unable to specify the specific timeline. So this could be anything from a medieval time period to like way back in the way, thousands of years ago. It could be any time period, but just expect cell phones did not exist. Most technology did not exist at this time period. This is like, again, a very long time ago. But at the time, things that people would have used for transportation, like horses, like boats, you didn't have that, but you didn't care. You were like, I will make something out of nothing. I will sell, as a joke, we'll just say the obvious. I will sell sticks. I will sell firewood if I have to. And you slowly worked your way up into being able to take advantage of the boats. And the big thing I'm seeing over here, which is really cool, is one thing that Spirit's telling me explicitly is you were able to build a very big kind of import business, you were able to make a lot of money because you always stuck to the coastlines rather than traveling too far. You know how a lot of import companies back in the day and currently will go to totally different continents. They have to go through complete oceans, all this stuff. You were smart. You were like, I don't have to go that far. I can stay relatively close, but because for most people they are unable to travel but 100 miles back in the day, I will take advantage of that and I'll be kind of like the local person that gets things. Because remember, if we follow the coast, especially around Europe or Asia, there is just so many different wares from, you don't have to travel that far to go past a couple countries. And that was kind of your mindset. So again, we talk about innovation. You were very wise, very happy, very optimistic. This is who you are as a person. Reach for that optimism. Reach for that creative way of solving problems. Think outside the box. It is in you. It has been in you from day one. It's really cool. But it looks like ultimately you were able to become a lord. Whatever it would have been at that time, you had your not only a really nice house, but you oversaw other people. Back in the day, if you had enough money, you then had a certain position in the hierarchy, and usually that came with kind of being the lord of other people, other towns, and you just loved it. You loved being able to see what was the next thing you could enjoy in life. So remember, if you ever feel like your world is getting a little too small, just remember that you naturally are somebody who's quite adventurous and is able to both appreciate what's happening right now, but understand maybe the job you're in, the relationship you're in is something you can have right now. Love it. Get the most out of it. But it is okay if you go on to something else. You can look back and be like, wow, I lived 5 lifetimes in one, because this is how you were back in the day, and these are the natural characteristics coming through. So take advantage of it. Take advantage of both appreciating what is now and getting the most out of it and carrying it on to the next thing that you're doing. And also try to go out of your way to experience a lot in life. Like, seriously, go nuts. You could literally be somebody who was working at a maid cafe in Japan, and then the next year be traveling and giving nature trail walks in Australia. Seriously, you can do anything. You are capable of it. You're smart about it. But because I don't see any trauma or tragedy that happened to you, and this type of job would have involved a lot of risk and a lot of errors to be learned from, you have a lot of natural luck on your side based on your viewpoint and your intelligence. Trust yourself and go out into the world in a way many people are not only too frightened to, but things do happen. It looks like you've been given the more positive side of the wheel, so to speak, or coin, whatever phrase you want to say. Luck is on your side. So I hope you enjoyed this reading as much as I enjoyed giving it. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, all that good jazz. I can't wait to see you in the next one. Have a beautiful day, and let's get ready for group number 2. Group number 2, let's find out who you were in a past life. Let's look at your tarot cards. We have the Fool, Wheel of Fortune, 6 of Pentacles, 9 of Pentacles, Queen of Pentacles, 9 of Wands, and your last card is Rescuer. Okay, I can tell you right off the bat, Spirit is showing me an image of somebody who would have been a very old, she would have passed away at an old age, Victorian woman. This is somewhere around the 1870s to early 1900s. It looks like you were an incredibly powerful person, but the part of your life that I'm being shown, and I can see in the cards that we're connecting to most, was your later years. You really came to life once all the men in your life were gone. So, okay, I'm being told by Spirit you had a brother. You were married and had kids, and you had somewhat controlling father. Nothing too out of the norm. It was a different time period for women, so you were just kind of unfortunately expected to just be more of a name. You know, you were expected to be a wife, a mother, and you were very much background fodder. Like, you weren't allowed to be your own person with your own opinions. And well, let's just say once everybody was gone, that turned around significantly. I'm not having any specific information given of who passed away first, but your father left you a ton of money, and he just died of natural age. Unfortunately, your husband died prematurely of some sort of like sickness or something, I'm being shown, something common of the time period. And he also left you a lot of money. So, to put it plainly, you were very, very, very wealthy. And that in itself, and the death of these people in your life, is where you gained all of your power. Not based on their notoriety and their word and who they were. You created your own. But no one could control you, buy you off, or influence you because you already had all the wealth and income you could ever desire and want. So you couldn't be influenced, and you could also choose actively to do something. So it looks like because you had your financial means met, you started to become somewhat of a, this gets repeated throughout most of these cards, a matriarchal figure in this. Oh, I also want to point out, I'm seeing that you were a Sagittarius, which makes sense because I'm getting a lot of characteristics repeated throughout the cards. And this goes along with positive traits with Sagittarius. So this is somebody who's very versatile. You were pretty much at all given times being requested by the public about what you think and what you should do. So you kind of were constantly having to jump on your feet. If you've ever seen Midnight in Paris, the woman all the artists go to have their art reviewed, and she decides where things go, and she has a lot of creative input. Think of that as your regular life. You're just constantly, people are coming into your house and you're answering to them, or they're answering to you, sorry, and you're helping them with things. So versatile, we talk about very lucky, and also you had a pretty high moral ground. This is where you were, this is especially where your power came from. So we talk about your generosity, not just financially, but with people. And we go into the rescuer situation. So you were not only somebody who was kind of, so to speak, a mother, a loving leader type of caretaker to your own children, but to everybody. Everybody was your kid. But this is not just somebody who it's like everyone respects their opinion, but they are not the head leader in their community. Oh, you were the head leader in their community. People feared you, people were jealous of you, people respected you, people needed your influence and power. You made and broke your community, and you loved it because you did not do things for anything other than to help people. So when we talk about the rescuer note, and this is something that does hint to your demise, unfortunately, there was some corruption in the current area that you were influencing. And when people would come to you, and maybe they were even people that were asked to do things that messed with your people or things that you were trying to do financially, if they came to you and were like, I'm sorry, or like, please don't get your people to hurt me, and da da da. It sounds a little mafia sort of related kind of vibed. It wasn't sinister like that. You weren't sinister like that, but consider it that sort of mentality, like unofficial leader. You were someone that were quicker to forgive than most. Not sheepishly, you never got taken advantage of. You were smart about it. You warned them. You were like, listen, if I'm going to take you in, you better live, stick up, live up to this new life you're going to live. And that really, made a lot of people angry because in a way you were taking other people's members. No one could get anyone to turn against you and gain control. And a lot of people were jealous of the money you had, influence, as a woman, not only as a woman, but the fact that they couldn't compete with you. You didn't have anything you were selling other than help. So it really made people very angry. We're getting hinted over here in the Nine of Wands, in the way it's like communicating with the Queen of Pentacles, that unfortunately looks like in your really, really, really late years. So you did live a long life. You were unfortunately murdered, it looks like, out of jealousy because of this situation with just constantly taking in the people. So, like, if some sort of leader kept being mean and abusive to the people who worked for them, they would eventually come to work for you, and it took away their power and influence, and that really just pissed them off, essentially. Let me see if there's anything else. Oh my god. So sorry for that very loud construction noise that chimed in. It looks like over here, you had a pretty, because of unfortunately these deaths in your life, because it doesn't look like you hated your dad or hated your brother or hated your husband, but unfortunately when these people passed, you realized you didn't have to check with anyone what you wanted to do. So you could do exactly what you wanted and really discovered who you were. But because you're aware of these people you loved leaving your life in an untimely manner, it made you have a pretty good head on your shoulders of being aware of the ups and downs in life. And so when there were downs, they didn't feel so down because you were like, well, I've also experienced what it can be like to get the upper hands. Like, unfortunately someone passed, but then you earned a lot of money. You miss this person you love, but you also discovered who you were. It can be both. You understand the duality, you have a natural sense, and this is something important I'm being told you really need to be aware of, that you can understand the duality of the good and bad and how they can exist at the same time, but also you are capable of handling a lot more than you are aware of, because if you back away, if you take that bird's eye view, you can kind of connect to it more so than other people can, of the cycle. You're understanding the bigger picture. So if you feel this sense of anxiety, this sense of like, oh no, this doom and gloom, back up. You are able to see the bird's eye view of life and how things work out, good and bad, and that they can always change. That's the thing you need to redirect your energy in. That's the thing that made the past version of yourself really soar, able to understand it can always get better. It looks like you're someone that's able to give second chances and really turn bad things to your favor. So therefore, if you look at it that way, there's never anything bad. Nothing, even enemies don't stay your enemies, so to speak. You're definitely somebody who has the potential and positivity to receive money, which I know seems, how do I express this? Sometimes that type of phrasing seems flowery and doesn't give us answers in life, but it does. Sometimes people are unable to receive money. I know that seems crazy, but it's like they'll wish for it, they'll ask it, and then they'll start to receive it and they self-sabotage themselves, or it makes them feel anxious because they're not aware of it, and they themselves are even surprised by it. You are unbothered. You can handle it. You can enjoy it. But again, it's not about ego. It's just about the comfortability with money. This is going to be something that really helps you hone into your manifestation. Your power to manifest more money in your life is about putting out that affirmation of, I receive money easily and happily. Connect to that. You're always receiving money. Just blanket statement. Don't ask where it's coming from. Just say, I receive money happy and freely. It's the mindset you were born with and you did well with. It's a past life you've already experienced. You already have this ability and trait. Use it to your advantage. And the last thing I want to say is, by the way, even though unfortunately your past self was killed off, you weren't naive. You always knew they were there, but you were pretty fearless and you were like, I couldn't care less. I've already experienced hell and back with the things I went through. Nothing can bother me anymore. Definitely hone into your fearlessness. The last thing I wanted to say, though, is your secret side. You did not come off stiff. You were just very stoic and generous and motherly, but like, hey, what I say goes. This is what it is. But you also had a secret silly side. Yes, you can have both. Now, you kept away the secret side so that your power came off a little more stronger, but you were not somebody who was afraid of having fun. In fact, another way you gained a lot of happiness and influence with the people that you rescued and built connections with is when you showed that, look, I can be someone who gets something done, but I can also take and make a joke. Don't forget how much our silly sides can be a sense of empowerment. And I don't just mean empowerment like influence, that too, but it can be empowerment to have confidence. It can empowerment to entice people, to pull them to us, to either build friendships, romances, again, influence. Don't forget your silly side. Don't forget the bigger picture. Don't forget what you are capable of receiving. All good stuff. Oh, also don't forget the people that you can win to your side. No one is truly your enemy unless you see them that way. So pretty cool overall. I hope you enjoyed this reading as much as I did. Consider giving it a like, comment, subscribe. It helps out the channel like you would not believe. Either way, I cannot wait to see you in the next one. Have a beautiful day. And let's get ready for group number three. Let's find out who you were in a past life. Starting off with your tarot cards. We've got 3 of Wands. Ooh, 3. 8 of Cups. The Hierophant. Wheel of Fortune. The Tower. 7 of Pentacles, and your last card is Child Divine. Okay, that's... wow. This is so cool. So this is for sure not a coincidence. When I go into who you were in your past life, you're going to see how spooky serendipitous this past life matches up with the fact that it's just group 3. Think of the number 3. Now, when I read this, I am certain you're going to be like, wait a minute, if that's who I was back then why have I even reincarnated at all? We'll get to why in the Tower specifically. So hold on to that thought because it is very important to understand who you were and how important it is in this lifetime. It's like it gives a lot of purpose to what you're doing right now. So first off, we're connecting to one of your first timelines, potentially the first. But what's so cool here is many people would agree that we are meant to reincarnate multiple times until we receive enlightenment. We're not going to get into beliefs here, but that's usually the generalized belief of why people think they're still reincarnating and stuff like that. But interestingly enough here, as soon as you were born, as soon as you came into existence for the first time, you were already on the spiritual journey your entire life, completely. I am getting a connection to a male person. I'm also getting a connection to an Aries. And I'm getting a connection to also a Taurus sign. Both Aries and Taurus are coming through. And both of those characteristics are very important, but we'll get to why in a moment. Now, you were spiritual in the sense that I can't exactly see if you went on and became a full-on monk. Like, I don't know how to describe this. Like a professional spiritual person. Or if you were just like, listen, I didn't become a full-on monk and go through the ceremonies to become that, but I am very isolated and dedicated all my time into what it means to be spiritual, all the different avenues to take, and ultimately want to experience enlightenment. It also looks like here, one of your main goals that came into realization was you wanted to experience all this stuff, not only to be the person to be lucky enough to feel enlightenment, feel spirituality, but you approached your spirituality in a very pragmatic, how do I express this? You weren't just like, oh yeah, I just feel this and now this is how I am. You wanted to be able to come up with the right words to then share that information. You ultimately wanted to be a spiritual leader, but not for any ego. You did not care in the least about being called upon, being a leader. It was not the leader. It was more of a teacher front. That is more what I'm getting connected, more what I'm connecting to. So when you were on your journey, a couple things that you found that enabled you getting pretty high up in this spiritual connection for you was just one, traveling. You really just being out and seeing what other people were experiencing, seeing the world from a different perspective. a very proactive way of going out and about. You went to a lot of far reaches in isolation, so a lot of mountaintops, a lot of fields in the middle of nowhere. You were always interested in a physical version of, and this is where we're going to get with Wheel of Fortune, which is really cool. You understood that you needed to see the whole of something, see a bird's eye perspective, the entirety of a situation. And you wanted to experience that head on, or hands on, sorry, in order for the indescribable sort of feeling to resonate with you. So it's a lot of standing on a cliff, standing on a mountain, and looking down and understanding all of the smaller parts that make the whole. Another thing that goes along with the same concept of wanting to see the entire picture was the moral front of the entire picture. You wanted to understand the good and the bad, the ups and the downs, and being able to accept both and at the same time. This is a very yin and yang sort of perspective. So even though you were very isolated, definitely see yourself as someone who was listening in on a lot of conversations, watching things play out from a distance, but from a far distance for sure. You definitely spent a lot of time before in your later years when you became a teacher, just seeing things from a distance. It looks like you gained a lot of this spiritual growth from being a teacher and being more social at that time period. It wasn't until you got enough of this, hands-on social interaction one after the other that this became a greater understanding and reality for you. And the last thing I see that was a big life lesson you learned was to be here in the now is something a lot of us try to achieve. And most people, that's kind of like the basis of if you want to be really spiritual, get connected to the here and now. But you were able to achieve that through working on projects and not worrying about them becoming something. So if you worked on farming to feed yourself during this time you were isolated, you did not care about it if it even became something or the next time. You were just so consumed with, okay, now I'm helping the corn grow. Now I'm cleaning the corn. A good analogy for this is there was a monk. I'm speaking about in real life. This isn't your particular person, but this did happen. They experienced I think they were a Buddhist monk. They experienced enlightenment when they were sweeping out their what is it called? The place where monks go to spiritually practice. When he was sweeping up, he imagined he was sweeping up his worries and anxieties, and as he was practicing this ritual, it's like it clicked in his brain. Like I said, you were very hands-on in order to understand things on a more emotional level here. So you learned how to be in the moment by doing it. You learned how to understand the entirety of good and bad, ups and downs, all of that jazz at the same time by, again, experiencing it with people, seeing it, very hands-on sort of thing. And you were able to understand this bigger picture and being able to pull yourself out of a situation, kind of rise above all of it by, again, straight up hands-on rising above it all. So that's definitely, before we get into other stuff, that's really important to note that you were and can be a very hands-on person. If you are struggling in a part of your life and you would like to overcome it, do things that metaphorically represent the thing you'd like to get better at, whether that be confidence or romance. I know this sounds silly, but a lot of the time in these sort of reality-based shows, they do metaphors and they try to use it as a way for the person who is doing this silly little game to better understand what they're not connecting to through words. You learn best your spirituality, your the mental side of you, the part that is unable to find words to describe things, connects and learns best from this. So use that to your advantage next time you want to achieve or grow in some sort of way. Come up with some little game. Put out a bunch of little imaginary objects and use, a great example is if you're wanting to work on something where you earn more money. You can, I mean, this is often used in spells, like witches will do this, but you don't have to believe in spells. You can do this as just a mental ritual. Use a bowl and every day put some objects in it, or it could be money, and pretend every time you put something in that bowl, you are receiving even more than you did before. And your brain connects to the idea that you only receive money. You only receive money. It only gets better. It only gets better. You will grow a lot from physical metaphors that you experience hands-on. So hopefully that point got made very clearly. So before we go into why you decided to reincarnate, and it is a bit of a decision slash forced reincarnation, and we'll talk about that in 1 second, but let's first, one last thing I wanted to mention was about your strong traits coming through as both a Taurus and Aries. So it looks like the Aries part of you was really, we can see that here, we can see the Aries part of you that came through was just somebody who was a natural leader. Yes, you wanted to isolate yourself and learn, but if you are going to run into people, you just can't help but draw people to you. They want to hear what you have to say, and you feel confident that you know what to say. You also have a deep sense of, or had a deep sense of justice and like morale. Definitely when people are going through spirituality, they usually try to be a good person. That's usually the goal. But also because you're able to understand, and it was so important for you to understand the good and the bad, what better way of understanding the concept as a whole? Like you really saw that, paid attention to it, defined people by it, defined yourself by it, recognized it, and used it to be able to fully learn this lesson. As a Taurus, though, you were patient. I mean, think about most of your life you were isolated, studying and being very spiritual. That's a constant thing I see being repeated here. You were very patient and steady and persistent and driven. And these things come with just doing a lot of nothing in order to ultimately have everything kind of click and make sense. It's like a lot of answers in the silence, so to speak. And of course, you were trustworthy. That again goes with the whole being the right type of person to share that information. Now, like I said, I'm sure at the end of this, you're like, wow, I sound like I reached, if not enlightenment, a full-on, pretty high up spiritual growth was there. Why didn't I ultimately get to enlightenment, and why am I here now? So now we're going to be a bit controversial. I'm going to insert a little bit of my theories and beliefs, but it's whatever you believe, go with the flow. You do you, I'll do me. But I kind of have the belief that when it comes to reincarnation, it's like one or two things. You can choose to not reincarnate. Part of me does feel, though, if you live a particularly twisted life, you kind of get forced out by the universe of like, do it again. You messed up pretty badly. But you can go, I'm done. I've done what I wanted to do. I'm good. But the other is a combination of needing to get what you didn't get in this lifetime, as well as sometimes people just want to reincarnate because it's fun. They just want to do it again. It's like a game, a spiritual game. We're all big spiritual entities, and going out and living life and learning lessons can be fun. But in the tower, I get a specific answer. It looks like even though you did all of this amazing stuff, one lesson you did not learn in this lifetime that you are experiencing now is the fun and the frivolity of mundane life. This is doing things for the sake of them meaning nothing. These are also things that it isn't a question of you being a good or bad person. They're just living life. This is you going to parties. This is you just having friends and it just being nothing but being silly and watching a TV show and eating popcorn. What is maybe you just doing nothing right now but scrolling through YouTube videos is something that you missed completely in this lifetime. And I know this sounds crazy, woo, but often when people are able to experience the fullness of spirituality, it's not just blanketly be here now and connect to a higher, sense of yourself, a higher being, whatever you believe in. It is everything. Spirituality is being able to understand everything, experience everything, and use it to your advantage to understand a greater message. You can't just go This is my life. I'm so good. Maybe potentially you were celibate. I kind of get the feeling you were celibate. Just being like completely restricted. And in a way, you're still cutting out something else. You can't say you see everything and still not experience or want to acknowledge other parts of yourself. And there was a weird awareness of this. There was that enlightenment and where a realization that like, oh no, now that I do understand the bigger circle, I didn't do this. So you came back to just kind of have fun and like be a human person. Go live, go love, scroll through YouTube videos, do something for nothing. That is weirdly super important because you already did the spiritual groundwork. If you feel like you naturally connect to spirituality more, guess what? You did the legwork. Enjoy it. Use it to your advantage. But don't have any guilt when it comes to the other stuff. It is just as important and vital. In fact, it's even more vital because it's your missing puzzle piece to if you would like to ultimately experience enlightenment. And if not, you can always come back again. Like I said, I do believe you can reincarnate by choice if you want to. So, hopefully all of this hands-on bit of metaphors and understanding your purpose now and all of these strengths you have benefit you in the best possible way. Either way, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Helps out like you would not believe. Either way, have a beautiful day. I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye. Let's get ready for group number 4. Group number 4. Let's find out who you were in a past life. But first, let's look at the tarot cards. We have 4 of Swords, 2 of Wands, 6 of Cups, 9 of Swords, Ace of Cups, 3 of Pentacles, and your last card is Messiah. Oh. Okay, I see what's going on here. Okay, I can actually get pretty specific with this one. So you were a male. This is almost making me feel like you were potentially, this would have been a medieval time period because you were a king. We can generalize it and say you were somebody who was pretty high up, in charge of a group of people, you had your own army, but let's be real here and just simplify it and say you were a king. So you were a king. Now, this here is one of the most defining, or it is the defining part of what happened to you, where things went, and kind of what was on your every waking thought. So you were actually not meant to be king. You were second in line. You had a brother, and they were older than you. They were meant to be. Everyone wanted them to be the king, and you were happy with that. You were actually seen as kind of quote-unquote weak because you were a very emotional person. You had a lot of emotions, you felt them hard, you were a very compassionate, you could feel energies type of person. And that, as somebody who was a leader at the time, was looked down upon, unfortunately. But you were very close with your brother. You were not jealous they were going to be king. You were pumped for them to be king. And they loved and respected and saw your emotions as a strength, as a positive thing. But unfortunately, tragedy struck your life in this timeline, and they passed away. So you lost your best friend, you lost the only person that understood you, and unfortunately, now their fate was yours, and it was not something you necessarily wanted, and you felt conflicted dealing with the rest of your life. Unfortunately, it also looks like your brother's death actually haunted you the rest of your life. It looks like you dealt with a lot of nightmares and night terrors and constantly were brought back to this memory of when they died. So it kind of already is hinting at that you were potentially there witnessing it. I'm also getting a vibe that maybe people in the beginning, hush spoken, kind of blamed you for it. Not blames that you did it, but blames like you could have done something to prevent it. So we're kind of getting hints that it was potentially an accident that happened, like, fell and drowned kind of sad situation. Anyways, you went on to be a king, and it looks like you had to be a king kind of relatively young. So the death of your sibling happened young, but you might have had to become a king maybe like teenage years, early teenage year or middle to end teenage years, so to speak. And so this is where the council comes in, the people who you had to rely on to give information. Now, the council's always kind of a common thing when it comes to anybody who's royal and leading people. They, no matter their age or experience, they always have a group of people they rely on. But it looks like these people had a particular set of influence over you because of your lack of experience. And because it was kind of always believed that because you weren't naturally meant to be the king, and again, we talk about you were known for your emotional side, and not emotional outbursts, just you were, because you were a sweetheart, that was somehow seen as a negative thing, essentially, or that you were okay with crying or showing your emotions. Do you see what I'm saying? It was a different time, unfortunately. So it was seen as like, oh, well, you weren't meant to be. Of course you need guidance. You can't do it without us. Now, it looks like this, again, really messed with you emotionally. Again, emotions are the common phrase. It defined how people judged you, who supported you, and you were not fully in control of your emotions. You had them, but unfortunately, you were not sure of what to do with them because people just purely looked down on you for them. So you weren't successful at repressing them, and you didn't know how to deal with them. So it led to a lot of anxiety, worry, a lot of negative feelings. It looks like you constantly had the mindset of where you were living in the past. You just couldn't help but keep going back and thinking, oh, if only my brother were here, only if we're back to the times. This moment, this time period was always on your mind forever. You could not let it go. But understandably, it wasn't that you couldn't let it go and you had the inability to let it go. How could you let it go when you experienced a lot of pain in this lifetime? From the people that judged you, the role you weren't expected to take, and didn't know how to deal with. How could you not look back at this time period and miss your best friend and a happier time period and the only person who really got and accepted you? So with a lot of these worries and mindset and being haunted by your brother and his death and this council doesn't seem like they were on your best side, so to speak. You had a lot of good intentions, it looks like, in the beginning. Your brother taught you that. Your emotions were a good thing. You saw in people what other people couldn't. And there was a lot of like, I'm going to lead people. And there was this intention of the Messiah kind of complex of like, I'm going to lead people and give them a better life than they had before. But unfortunately, with a combination of negative influence, like not the right mindset from your counsel, that then causing you to be all stressed out, you being unable, this past version of you being unable to control their emotions, unfortunately, it led to kind of almost I'm not getting anything that says like defensive or paranoid, but definitely somebody who didn't feel like they could leave the castle started to become a little, I don't want to say sinister, but the good intentions turned negative. It became like, I've got to have it my way, overly emotional, becoming angry. It was all the negative characteristics of somebody who's able to feel quite easily, that being a predominant part of their personality. And it does look like a significant event that happened. We don't have confirmation this was your death, but this is something that hints to it being a possibility. It looks like at some point you were doing your thing, you had totally lost connection with your kingdom because you were so in your own head, doing your own anxieties, being poorly led. You kind of became the person everyone worried and viewed these bag of emotions to be. They considered this to be what being overly emotional means, when it doesn't mean that. So you kind of unfortunately became the person they thought negatively to be. And it looks like at some point you were trying to get your armies to do something, you were trying to show your power, and they just weren't budging. It was a giant stoic movie scene kind of vibe of like, because you're commanding us and because we're not listening, we're showing you're not in control anymore. So it's potential they could have raided the kingdom and killed you. There was something where like no, your kingdom no longer cared that you were of royal blood and you were leading them. They were done with whatever your good intentions that went badly over time, unfortunately. So there is a chance you were assassinated or murdered by your people in some way, whether this be a huge avalanche of people, maybe your own armies, or a singular person, but everyone in the mindset was like, now, I know, super dark. Wow, fun, cool, I learned about my tragic backstories of past life. This has good intentions, trust me. There is a reason out of all the past lives you've lived, we are being shown this one. It looks like it gets repeated everywhere. You're a very strong, emotional person. You feel love to a magnitude people could only understand. You feel friendship. You have appreciation and compassion to a level people can kind of get, but you feel and can emanate to a level people only wish they could. This is a good thing. This is the version of your past life, or this is the past life, and a version of when these things are not in check and celebrated and taught to be managed and used to your benefit. This is where it went wrong. The lesson that we learn every past life, every lifetime, has been learned. Appreciate and enjoy. If you ever feel like it's a burden to feel this much, it's not. This is somebody who thought it was a burden, and guess what? It became a burden. You know, you're putting out there, you get back in return kind of thing. It's like everyone going, everyone hates me, everyone hates me. And eventually, go figure, everyone hates you. Do not think for a second your emotions are a weakness. They are a loving, wonderful thing that can draw people to you. You will appreciate life and experience things in ways that nobody ever will. It will help you navigate things to your benefit, but definitely know when they feel like they're coming out of check and you need to take a moment to breathe and relax and kind of more go with the flow rather than letting the waves push you down. And understand that your ability to attract the life you want through you is through your feelings. There's different versions of psychicness, there's different versions of magic, there's different versions of being able to bring things to you. Sometimes people can just say it, sometimes people need to see it, proof, some people need to experience it. For you, you are somebody who feels. Feel the things you want. Imagine the life you want, imagine the relationship you want, imagine the wealth you want. Whatever side or version of you want, pretend it's happening now and feel it. That is your power. Use it to your advantage, celebrate it. You already went through the woes in life to learn this lesson. Don't let this go to waste because it's an awesome positive thing. I mean, plus, like, look how cute this card is. Who can be upset at this card? Who wouldn't want to enjoy this beautiful pink little tie-dye happy overfilling cup? So yes, enjoy it to all its benefits. If you enjoyed this reading though, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps out like you would not believe. Either way, have a beautiful day. I can't wait to see you in the next one, and bye!